AMD just dropped an absolute financial shockwave. Total Q1 revenue hit $10.3 billion, a massive 38% year-over-year explosion, completely vaporizing consensus. Tearing into the architecture, the data center engine skyrocketed 57% to a staggering $5.8 billion, cementing AMD as the ironclad backbone of global AI infrastructure. Client delivered heavy firepower, surging 26% to $2.9 billion, while gaming and embedded fortified the base with a combined $1.6 billion. Gross profit hit $5.4 billion at a massive 53% margin. After devouring $3.9 billion in operating expenses, operating income stood strong at $1.5 billion. But the bottom line is the kill shot. Net income reached a towering $1.4 billion, violently exploding 95% year-over-year. And the EPS? A flawless $1.37, crushing Wall Street's $1.29 estimate. AMD is engineering structural, ruthless profitability. Look at the sheer velocity of this revenue expansion. Total revenue has violently scaled from just $5.9 billion in Q1 2022 straight to a towering $10.3 billion today. Data center was barely a blip in early 2022 at $1.3 billion. Today, it has violently exploded to $5.8 billion. That is a 45.5% CAGR, one of the fastest compounding machines on Earth. Meanwhile, legacy client and gaming segments are bleeding out at a negative 2.5% CAGR. The old business model is dead, and the embedded segment? Inherited from a $60 billion Xilinx buyout, it's steadily compounding at 10.1%, injecting high-margin recurring cash flow. The trajectory is no longer linear. It is exponential. Peel back the segments to expose the true monopoly architecture. Data center? $5.8 billion, commanding a 28% operating margin. EPYC cloud instances violently surged nearly 50% to over 1,600. Instinct GPUs are printing billions in incremental revenue. This is the absolute growth engine. Client? $2.9 billion. Enterprise adoption of Ryzen Pro is up over 50%. The Ryzen AI 400 series is capturing the AI PC wave before competitors can even blink. Embedded? $873 million, commanding a massive 39% operating margin. Cisco is now weaponizing its N9300 and 8000 series routers with AMD silicon. But gaming is the lone bleeder, falling 15% quarter-over-quarter, with management projecting a brutal 20% drop in late 2026 as memory inflation strangles margins. Then, the ultimate kill shot, 12 gigawatts of committed GPU compute, 6 from Meta, 6 from OpenAI, targeting a $120 billion server CPU market. This is infrastructure for the next decade of civilization. AMD's explosive forward trajectory is being violently accelerated by 3 unstoppable mega catalysts. First, the AI supercycle. Hyperscalers are dropping over $650 billion in CapEx in 2026, with 75% flowing straight into AI infrastructure. Second, the refresh cycle. AMD is riding the recovery wave with Ryzen AI and embedded momentum. But the third catalyst is an absolute masterstroke that changes the semiconductor industry forever. The hyperscaler equity for compute model. Look at the economics. A standard competitor 8 GPU cluster costs $9 million. AMD's equivalent? Just $3 million. That is a devastating 66% TCO savings. Armed with this pricing power, AMD locked in an unprecedented 12 gigawatts of compute commitments. 6 gigawatts from OpenAI and 6 gigawatts from Meta. But they aren't just selling hardware. They're turning their biggest customers into stakeholders. AMD is granting up to 10% equity, vesting only as the physical infrastructure is deployed. Their partner's financial success is mathematically chained to AMD's stock hitting $600 per share, unlocking a potential $100 billion profit. This isn't a vendor relationship. It's an ironclad alliance for global AI supremacy. The market share data is an absolute slaughter. AMD now commands 38.2% of global CPU revenue. On desktop, they've officially dethroned Intel, capturing an unprecedented 51.7%. Laptops sit at 25%, while server holds at 13.3%, prime for the EPYC Venice boom. Enterprise penetration is exploding. Commercial Ryzen Pro sell-through violently surged over 50%. Cisco is now weaponizing its N9300 and 8000 series AI routers directly with AMD silicon, alongside the new Kintex UltraScale Plus Gen 2 dominating the industrial space. In the cloud, Agentic AI is completely rewriting the rules. Autonomous agents demand heavy serial processing, driving up CPU to GPU attachment rates and exploding EPYC cloud instances by nearly 50% to over 1,600. Software is catching up fast. ROCm 7.0 now covers 92% of CUDA 12.5's API with day zero support for models like Gemma, Quinn, and Kimi. The only brutal headwind? The HBM vacuum effect. AI is devouring global memory supply, ruthlessly squeezing OEM margins and crushing the gaming console sector. Look at this 15-year bloodbath in discrete GPUs. AMD cycled between 22% and 41% for a decade, only to see its share utterly vaporize down to 5% today. Total shipments hit 44.28 million in 2025, but NVIDIA's Blackwell architecture absorbed virtually all the growth. RDNA 4 was ruthlessly outgunned in ray tracing. Now, the ultimate gamble. RDNA 5, launching late 2026. With its VOPD3 dual-issue pipeline, this is AMD's final, desperate strike to reclaim the consumer graphics throne. The clock is absolutely ticking. This is the technological blueprint engineered to completely rewrite the global AI hierarchy. Look at the sheer brute force. The MI400 unleashes a terrifying 40 petaflops of compute, armed with a massive 432 gigabytes of 12-stack HBM4 memory. It's paired with the EPYC Venice CPU, packing an unheard of 256 cores on the massive SP7 socket, pushing 12,800 megatransfers per second. The business moat is completely impenetrable. The compute for equity model locks in 12 gigawatts of infrastructure for Meta and OpenAI. AMD grants up to 10% equity, vesting only as this AGI infrastructure physically scales. Their partner's financial success is now mathematically chained to AMD's stock hitting $600. To secure supply, AMD is mastering 2.5D CoES packaging, locking down TSMC capacity to dominate a $48 billion market. And the ultimate kill switch? UALink, an open standard interconnect designed to permanently shatter NVIDIA's NVLink monopoly. From neuromorphic AI to agentic AI, AMD is weaponizing every single secular trend. Look at the sheer velocity of AMD's operating expenses. Total OpEx surged to $3.9 billion. The apex predator here? Research and development, compounding an aggressive 22.7% annually, tearing through $2.4 billion this quarter alone, 23% of total revenue. That is a cold-blooded capital reallocation to forge silicon supremacy. Selling, general, and administrative grew to $1.3 billion for global expansion, while amortization is actually shrinking at negative 0.3%. Revenue is scaling violently faster than costs, the exact blueprint of a compounding monopoly. This is one of the most violent financial comebacks in tech history. Revenue climbed from $5.9 billion in early 2022 to $10.3 billion today. But the margin story is an absolute shockwave. Collapsing to negative 3% during the PC down cycle, AMD executed a brutal snapback, surging to 11%, then 15%, and now locking in a 13% net margin to print $1.4 billion in pure net income. The trajectory is undeniable. As data center devours the revenue mix, expect these margins to violently expand toward 20% by 2028. Every single quarter, AMD vaporizes Wall Street expectations. But look at the forward trajectory. It is a vertical ascent. Q2 is guided at $11.2 billion, an explosive 46% year-over-year acceleration. Q3 consensus sits at $12.4 billion. Q4 projects a monstrous $15.5 billion, the largest single quarter in company history. By early 2027, they are modeling $16.3 billion. With Helios deployments from Meta and OpenAI locked in, these aren't just estimates. They are legally binding cash flows. The EPS trajectory doesn't just grow, it detonates. Q1 non-GAAP EPS hit $1.37, violently beating the $1.29 estimate. That is a 43% year-over-year explosion. Now watch the forward curve. $1.58 in Q2, $1.82 in Q3, and a towering $2.59 by Q4, nearly doubling Q1 in a single year. Annualize that, and you are staring at a $9 EPS run rate. The EPS inflection has arrived. It is no longer a question of if, only how high it goes. Institutional conviction is absolute, but let's read the tape. AMD is coming off a violent, parabolic tear, making a short-term correction highly probable. But the real danger? The bear case floor sits at $230. From today's $455, that is a catastrophic 50% downside risk if supply chains choke. The stakes are massive, yet Wall Street isn't blinking. Out of 58 analysts, 41 demand a strong buy. 0 sells. The consensus is 442, but Ultra Bulls are hunting a massive $625 target. Why? Because the $120 billion supercycle is real. When 81% of the street gladly swallows a 50% downside risk just because the CEO locked in 12 gigawatts of global compute, the signal is deafening. AMD is the ironclad infrastructure of the AI economy. The views expressed in this video reflect publicly available information and analyst research at the time of publication. All data is sourced from AMD's official earnings releases, SEC filings, and third-party analyst reports. This content is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice. If this breakdown gave you the edge, hit like and subscribe. See you on the next one.